For more than 13 years, I have been the person behind the camera. I photographed people, directed commercials, worked with brands, built lighting setups, chosen lenses, and helped other people feel comfortable in front of the camera. But when I finally decided to point the camera at myself, something unexpected happened. I had no idea what to say. And even when I knew what I wanted to say, I didn't know how to say it naturally. Suddenly, all the experience I had behind the camera didn't make being in front of it any easier. In some ways, it made it even harder, because I knew exactly what a good video should look like. I could see every small problem. I could see the framing, I could see the light, I could see the sound, I could see my posture, the way I spoke, every pause, every word that didn't sound right. And because I could see all of that, I started judging the video before I had even finished recording it. I've been working in photography and filmmaking since 2013. During that time, I learned how to create images for other people, how to understand a client's vision, how to develop an idea and transform it into something visual. I became comfortable telling other people's stories, but I wasn't telling my own. For years, I could hide behind the camera, not because I was afraid of the camera itself, but because that was where I felt really useful. That was where I knew exactly what my role was. Someone else was the subject. Someone else was the voice. My job was to make them look good and help their story come to life. And then, earlier this year, I decided that it was time to start building my personal brand. Not only Cabo Studio, not only Cabo Photography, not only the project I create for clients, but Andy Cabo. My experience, my journey, my ideas, and everything I'm still learning along the way. That decision sounded really simple. Just turn on the camera and start talking. But soon I realized it wasn't simple at all. The first thing I discovered was that speaking to a camera is a completely different skill. When I'm directing someone, I can immediately see what they need. Maybe they need the clearer question. Maybe they need to forget that the camera is there. Maybe they need another take, a little more energy, or simply a few seconds to relax. But when I'm the person in front of the lens, it becomes much harder to see those things. There is no real conversation. There is no immediate reaction. You tell a story, look into a piece of glass, and hope that someone on the other side will eventually connect with it. At first, that feels strange. You become too aware of yourself. You think about your voice, you think about your English, because that was one of my challenges. You wonder if the idea is interesting enough. You wonder if people will care. And somewhere between all those thoughts, you stop speaking like yourself. You start performing. That was probably the biggest lesson for me. Being good in front of the camera is not about performing better. It's about performing less. It's about learning how to speak to the camera as if there were one real person sitting on the other side. The second thing I learned is that experience can easily turn into perfectionism. When you are just starting out, you may not notice every technical imperfection. But after working in production for so many years, I notice everything. I know when the light could be better. I know when the edit could be tighter. I know when a shot could be more cinematic. And that knowledge is valuable when I work for a client. But when I create for myself, it can become a trap. Because if every video needs to look like a commercial, producing content becomes almost impossible. You start spending hours preparing a video that should have taken 30 minutes. Or worse, you don't film it at all. I'm still learning that my own content doesn't always need to be a full production. Sometimes the value is not the perfect image. Sometimes the value is simply in the idea, the experience, or the conversation. That doesn't mean I want to stop caring about quality. Visual storytelling is part of who I am, and I want my work to reflect that. But quality and perfection are not the same thing. Quality helps you communicate an idea. Perfection can prevent you from communicating anything. Another important lesson was that telling your own story requires a different kind of courage. When you create something for a client, there is a brief. There is a clear objective. There is usually a product, a campaign, or a message that needs to be delivered. When you create for yourself, you have to decide what is worth saying. And that can feel surprisingly uncomfortable. Who am I to talk about this? Is my experience relevant? Hasn't somebody else already said it better? These questions can make you believe that you need to become more successful before you have permission to share your journey. But I am beginning to understand that you don't have to wait until you reach the final destination. There is value in documenting the road. There is value in sharing what you are learning while you are still learning it. I have more than 13 years of experience in photography and filmmaking, but I'm still at the beginning of this chapter. I'm learning how to build a personal brand. I am learning how to grow a YouTube channel. I am learning how to communicate with an audience instead of only communicating through the images I create. And I think this process is worth documenting honestly. Not only the successes, the uncertainty too. Since I started putting myself out there, I have already experienced things like that I didn't expect. I became a Focus Nordic ambassador. I was invited by Red to speak at TIFF, Transylvania International Film Festival. I started conversations with brands and people I may never have reached if I had remained completely behind the camera. These are meaningful steps for me. But those steps didn't happen because I suddenly became a different filmmaker. The experience was already there. The work was already there. The difference was that I finally started allowing people to see the person behind that work. And I'm glad I did this. And maybe that is one of the most important things I have learned. Doing good work is not always enough. People need to understand who you are, what you believe in, and why you create. Your work can show your abilities, but your voice creates the connection. I'm still not completely comfortable in front of the camera. I still record the same sentence several times. I still watch myself back and notice things I want to change. I still sometimes sit here with the entire setup ready, wondering if I actually have anything relevant to say. In fact, that is exactly how this video started. I wanted to film something, but I felt like I didn't have a subject. Then I realized that the feeling itself was the subject, because I know I'm probably not the only creative person dealing with this. Maybe you are a photographer, a filmmaker, a designer, or someone building a business. You know how to create for other people. You know how to solve their problems. But when it's time to create something for yourself, everything becomes more difficult. If that sounds familiar, I don't think the answer is to wait until you feel completely ready. I think the answer is to begin before it feels natural. Because confidence in front of the camera doesn't come before you start. It comes from doing this again and again and again and again. From recording the uncomfortable first videos, from discovering your voice through the process, and from accepting that the person you are becoming on camera may take some time to meet the person you already are behind it. After 13 years behind the camera, stepping in front of it has made me feel like a beginner again. And honestly, I think that is a good thing. It is uncomfortable, but is also exciting. There is an entire side of my creative journey that I haven't shared yet. The projects, the equipment, the mistakes, the business decisions, the places filmmaking has taken me, and the process of trying to build something that is truly my own. This channel is where I want to share that journey. Not as someone who has everything figured out, but as someone with real experience who is still moving forward, experimenting and learning. So, if you are also trying to create something of your own, build a personal brand, or simply find the courage to step in front of the camera, I hope you'll follow this journey. And if you are currently hiding behind your own work, maybe it's time to let people see the person who created it. I am Andy Cabo, and this is me, finally stepping in front of the camera.